data. Have you ever wondered how businesses make those big game-changing decisions? It is all about the data. Welcome to the exciting world of data.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. If you are joining us from Nigeria, this is like 7 p.m. Nigerian time. So good evening, and if you are joining outside Nigeria, I'll greet you. Good evening, right? I welcome every one of you guys. Am I audible? Can you guys hear me? Am I audible? Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I believe you guys are happy, right, to join tonight's class, right? I checked the chat group now. I saw some people have joined the section by 6:30. I saw that people join like 6:45, right? You know, that's awesome. That's very, very good of you guys, right? It shows that you guys are ready, right, to move from where you are now to another level, right? That's awesome, right? So good evening, everyone. Today, so we are still in the Excel. So today we'll be looking at the if function. You know, it's still part of your conditional function, right? So we'll be looking at if function, also switch, then from there we'll move to pivot table. So we're going to start now with if function, right? So I will just proceed to share my screen. Just let me know once my screen is visible, so that we can just start without wasting our time. Okay. Okay. Hope my screen is visible now. Can anyone see my screen? Hope my screen is visible. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. 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 Let's start. So, like I said, we're going to start with Excel function. We're going to start with if function in Excel, right? So, I believe some of you might have heard if function in Excel, and some of you that have used Excel to some extent with something that you might have used on maybe on your activities, on your daily activities in your office, right? And now we're going to look at it like, what is if function in Excel? What does it do? How does it work, right? So when we're talking about if function in Excel, so if function is used to check a condition and return different value, right? It's used to check what? Condition and return a different value, right? There are some other parameters that can also be used with in addition to Excel, like hand and or, right? Hand and or can also be used like in addition to if function. But that's if time permits us today, we will look at those parameters in addition to if function. But our focus now is if function. And like I said, that if function in Excel is used to check a condition and return different value, right? So if you look at what's on my screen, right, right, so you can see these activities, right? And you can see activity code, right? Activity, you can see active, right? And then activity code. right? So what do we want to do? Under this, that the value under active is what? Is yes. Is what? Is yes. And the value under activity code is what? Is 1, right? So we want if function to return a value. Want if function to return a value. So what value do we want the if function to return as regard what is on the screen, right? So I'll just come here, right? I'll just come here. I believe you guys know that by the time you want to start writing any function in Excel, it starts with equal sign, right? It starts with what? With equal sign, right? Once you put your equal sign, then write your what? Your function. The function we are using here is what? Is if, right? So Excel is very, very intelligent. There's some can I call it AI or an intelligence that's like an inbuilt to Excel that can give you a clue of what you want to do, right? Take for instance now, I want to write a function, right? And the function starts with I. The moment I type I, so it's going to give me other functions that start with what? With I. Now, so the next thing to do is to type the second letter, which is if, right? Again, I use my tab, right, to enter if function. So the moment I enter if function, then a bracket is open. Now, on the screen, you can see these attributes here, these characters. Let's look at this character one after the other. There is a logical test. There is a value if true, and there is a value if false. So what does it attribute? What does it mean? Right? So if function in Excel is also used, right? We use it to perform a logical comparison. That's what we are trying to do. It's used to what? To perform logical comparison. Now you can see here, right? See logical test. The logical test is the value that will determine the result, whether the result is going to be true or the result is going to be false, right? That's what the logical test is going to do. So from what I have on the screen here, if I click on yes, that's my logical test. That's my what? That's my logical test, right? Then I said if D8, the E8 is the cell where we have yes, right? So the D8 represents what? Represents yes. So I said if D8 is equals to, right? Is equals to what? Is equals to yes. Because it is a letter, because it's a test, it is a string, right? So I'm going to put apostrophe, right? Double one. Then inside, oh, sorry. Then inside, I type yes, right? Then I'm still on logical test. Then I press comma. Now it becomes value if true, right? Value if true. So what we're trying to say is that if yes, if D8 is equals to yes, and the value that corresponds to it is 1, that means is what? Is true. Then if it is false, it should return whatever it found, right? So you can put anything, any value there. You can put any value. So if D8 is equals to yes, it should give us what? It should give us 1, right? Otherwise, you can give us anything. Otherwise, you can give us what? Anything. Otherwise, give us 5. So it means if that 1 is not found, it should give us what? 5, right? Then I close the bracket. Then I hit enter. So you can see what happened. It returned 1. So meaning the value for yes, which is activity code, is equals to 1. So it can return the value found, right? So in a situation whereby it didn't see the value, which is 1, what happened? It should return what? Return 5. I will take it again, right? I'm going to take it again. Now, I press equal sign, right? Sorry, a minute. So I press equal sign, right? Then if function, the bracket open, the logical test. That's the value that will determine whether it is going to be true or what, or false. The activities, right? Now I click on yes, right? And I said if D8 is equals to yes, right? Is equals to yes. Is equals to yes. Oh, sorry. Right? Is equals to yes. You should give us what? 1. Because that's the activity code is 1. Otherwise, you should give us 2. Then bracket close. Then hit enter. Now, it's giving us what? It's giving us 1. So meaning the value is what? Is found, right? And so that's why I said that the if function in Excel is used what? To perform a logical comparison, right? And return different results depending on the outcome. Return different results depending on the what? On the outcome, right? So the outcome here is what? Is 1. Now let's move further, right? Let's look at this, the second one here, right? Where active is 1, then activity code now is yes. So let's see what will happen now. I press equal sign, right? And if function, logical test is what? Is 1. So if D15 is equals to 1, right? You should give us what? Yes. What we are doing now here right now, we are looking at just a one, just like a one outcome, right? Just a single outcome we want. So we're going to look for we have a data that we will use what to determine, like when we are looking at multiple value, right? When we are trying to get a multiple value. So basically it's just a single result, single outcome, right? We can also determine multiple outcome, like double, more than 2, 3 outcomes. Now, so, and I said if D15 is equals to 1, then it should give us what? Yes. Otherwise, give me what? No. Right? Then hit enter. Then you can see yes. It has returned yes. So what this one is saying is that if D15 is equals to 1, you should return yes. It should what? It should return yes. Otherwise, return no. Otherwise, what? Return no. I don't know if this is clear, right? If it's clear, I don't know if it's clear. Okay, some people say you can't see my screen. Not clear. Okay. Okay. Not clear. It is not clear. Okay. Not clear. Okay. 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 So let's go back. Let's go back. Right. So look at what we have here. Right. Look at what we have here. I have this data here. Right. The field name is active. And the value there is what? Yes. The field name here is activity code. And the value there is what? Yes. So we want to write a function that will return yes. When I say if D15 is equals to 1, it should return what? Yes. If this 15 is equals to 1, it should return yes. Otherwise, return no. So that's what we are trying to find out, right? If D15 is equals to 1, return what? Yes for me. If that yes cannot be found, you should return no. That's just the logic. That's the logic. Now, let's go over it again. So I said, when you're writing a function in Excel, the first thing you do is press your equal sign, right? After you press your equal sign, type the function. The function here is if. Use your tab to enter. Then a bracket open for you. Then you have this attribute, logical test, value if true, then value if false, right? And which I explained earlier, right? Now I move to my active, right? Then I will press or I click on 1. That's D15. I click on that one. That's what? D15, right? And I said if D15 is equals to 1, the value there is 1. The value there is what? Is 1. Is equals to 1, right? It should give me what? Give me yes. Return yes. Return what? Return yes, right? Then if at the end you run through the entire data and yes is not found, what should happen? Then give me no. Then return no. Or otherwise, return no. But in a situation whereby after I press enter or after I execute my query and it runs through the entire data and it found yes, what should happen? It's going to return it because it was able to find the value, right? So, and I said if yes is not found, then return no, right? Return no. Now the next thing to do is to hit enter. Now it return yes. It what? It return yes because after executed or after I press enter, what happened is that it runs through the entire data set and it was able to find yes and return yes for me. So I don't know if we are on the same page now. Okay, I don't know if we are on the same page now. Now, okay, maybe let's move further, right? I have a data set here, right? I have a data set here. Let's use this to re-explain, so whether it will now be clear for us. Now, if you look at the data set here, right, I have serial number, I have name, peradventure or student name, right? Then I have student score, then I have grade. If you look at these scores, we have 19, 13, 78, 56, 88, 20, 23, and so on like that, right? Now, I want to grade this student score into fail, good, credit, and excellence, right? I know that's like a grade we use when we were in school, right? Maybe there are some certain number from certain number to certain number is going to be a fail. Anybody that scored below 40, right? Failed. And anybody that scored maybe 40, between 40 and 50, maybe pass. Then 50 and certain number, credit, then maybe certain number, maybe 70 and above, excellent, right? Now, let's use a function to get that done. Let's use if function, right, to get that done. Right. Before we proceed, I would like to get, okay, zoom your screen. Clear, okay, clear, okay. Okay, I will zoom my screen now. I will zoom my screen. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Right. Right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. 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 So I'm going to stop here, right? I'm going to stop here on IDs around, right? So he's going to take over from here. So I don't want to go further, right? So he's going to take over, right?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you so much, Femi, for standing in. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. Um, can we hear me, everybody? Am I audible enough? Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. My special appreciation to my boss. So my boss actually stood in for me, well, because I was running late. He had to assist with that. Actually, is my teacher really. Maybe you don't know, so I would introduce him properly soon. But just in a moment, I'm gonna share my screen, and so we can run with this. My screen, share screen. This, this. All right. Can we also see the screen? Can we see the screen, everybody? I want to believe so. All right. Okay. So we're welcome to this session. This is the last for this week. Somebody said no, maybe it's not up at your end yet, and hopefully it's gonna be up in a second or two. Um, Today will be the last day for functions, and then we're going into something else, which is reporting in Excel. A file has been shared on Telegram. Please, if you have the file and you've downloaded it, you have it opened, can you tell me a yes on the chat, please? You have the file, you have it downloaded, it's up on your system. Yes on the chat, so we can shoot into this. Yes, we need to thank Boss Femi. Yeah. All right, so do you all have the file? No, a file was shared today. So you should probably get back to the Telegram channel to pick the file that we're using for today. All right, it looks like most of us do have the file. Excellent. So today, like I mentioned, we have a very quick agenda on the function side. which will be the last part of it for today. We will be talking about conditionals. That has been started by Femi already. So I will just do a quick recap of that before we go into reporting in Excel. One key thing that you probably already do understand, which has been part of this journey so far, is that when we talk about your data analysis journey, a lot of it will revolve around you creating reports in Excel. So if you would create a report in Excel, then how would you do that? How are you supposed to go about it? What are some of the details you need to have around creating? You need to go back to Telegram, please, to download the file. It's already on the Telegram channel. Some have it, some don't. If you don't have it, you need to go back to the channel to pick it, please. Yeah. So we'll talk about reporting generally, and then we now narrow it down to using a particular tool in Excel, which is called pivot tables. And it is on this conversation that we're going to step it up a bit in our next class, the next meeting we'll be having. All right. So when we talk about conditionals, which is what Femi introduced us to, is a case of you want to create certain details. Think about it this way. For example, we are in this class now. So as we are in this class, we are of different age brackets. Maybe we have people that are of 10 years age. Maybe there are people of age 20, 20 something, age 30, 30 something. Maybe we have people that are much older than that, the ages that I've mentioned in this class. We now want to create some sort of bucket to say that if, for instance, I see Franca on this call, if Franca's age is less than 20, we want to call Franca, that will not be Gen Z, right? I think anybody after year 2000, they don't call them Gen Z again. Tell me, what's Gen what? So we call them that Gen, yeah? And then anybody that's between 20 to 30 years of age, we call them Gen Z, for instance. And anybody that's above 30 years of age, maybe we call them Gen Y, for example. Please, the file name should be, thank you, Abimbola Gen Alpha. The file name should be pivot tables file. That's the file that we are using for today. Pivot table file. That's what we are using. Yeah, Gen Alpha, that's what they are called. Okay, so you understand the game now. So it's more like saying that everybody in this class, we want to put them into buckets. So the buckets have already been created. We have a bucket for Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and you said millennial, right? So these three buckets now, what are we going to use to fill these three buckets? They are people in this class. What do we need to find out? We need to find out what the age of each of the person in this class is, and based on their age, we'll put them in their respective buckets. So what that means is that before we would understand who would go to what bucket, we need to test some conditions. Test a condition in the sense that if Ruth's age is less than 20, then Ruth will be Gen Alpha. If Omalara is between 20 and 25, then Omalara would be Gen Z. If Ghanaian is above 30 years of age, then she would be in the millennial bucket. So that's what conditionals is about. So think about it as your go-to tool or set of functions whenever you have to generate some sort of categories by testing certain conditions. Does this make sense to us now? I know my screen is not moving. I know. I'm explaining. Yeah? Do we get this explanation? Do we get the explanation, everybody, before we go into doing it? Let's be patient, please. My screen is not moving. I know. Everything I've said now are just explanations. They are not on my screen. Yes, they are not on my screen. So listen, don't be distracted. We mentioned this yesterday as well. Do we understand what I've explained so far? You do not understand because you were looking for files. So let's look at it again. Let's all be together now. Let's all be together now. What I'm saying is this. We want to create categories. All right. Let's say the categories we want to create now is about, let's use something else. We want to put people into buckets of, for instance, gender. Yeah. So now the gender bucket has how many options? Answer me. How many options would we have in our gender bucket? I want to look for the correct answer now. Somebody should tell me how many. Okay, Abimbola said 2. Okay, so I think I will take 2, right? Okay, so now we have 2 options. Good. So from these 2 options now, we know that we can have male, we can have female. Somebody said 3, but I will not go by 3. We can have male or we can have female. We now want to begin to put people into whether they are males or females. But for now, what we want to use is to look at people's names. So we have said that everybody in our class, they have, let's say we have just 5 people in our class, right? So 5 people in our class, we have Mary, we have Femi, we have Ruth, we have Abiola, and we have Fashina, for example. So we now want to say that anybody with the name Mary should go to the female bucket. Anybody with the name Ruth would go to the female bucket. Anybody with the name Fashina will go to the male bucket. With the way I've set this, with the way it's structured, what it means is that you are testing conditions. You are testing some criteria. And this criteria has to be true or have to be true or false. If the criteria is true, it means that that criterion will push whatever is true for into a particular bucket, which in this case, it means that the person we are looking at is probably Ruth, or the person is Mary. If the person is Ruth or Mary, it means the person will go to the female bucket. So that is true. And if the person is not Mary or is not Ruth, it means the person goes into the male bucket. So whenever you have a scenario that needs you to test conditions, then you should think around all I've explained now. And there are functions in Excel that can allow you to undo these specific cases. Are we on the same page now so we can proceed? Are we good now, everybody? If the person is cross-gender, I will leave us to answer that. You know the bucket the person will go to. All right, good. So let me share my file now. I'll put my file on the screen. And then, yeah, 1 second. All right. So when we look at what we have here, this is the case that we want to look at today, which is a case of, we have this file that we have with us. Everybody should open it. Before I go into the details of what is on this file, for the moment, let's first look at this. This is a sort of a data file that you probably would get from, maybe a department within an organization. This is sales data, for example, which means that maybe this kind of data set might come to you from the sales department. On this table now, just so that we understand what is happening here before we go to implement what we want to implement, we have our transaction details here. We track our transaction based on the region region that that transaction happens on in. So the region can either be the regions of the country, so which could northeast, all of the regions that you already know. And within those regions, we now narrow it down to which markets. So the markets we have here essentially are the states within the country. So if we try to apply filters here, and then the shortcut, if I want to bring up the filter button so that I can see all of the unique options here, I can just press some Control Shift L. So if I press Control Shift L, it brings up all of this filter button. And if I apply filter on this, just to see the options, you see here that we have just the 6 geopolitical zones of the country here. These are the options. So which means we don't expect our sales to happen outside of Nigeria. It has to be here because we are dealing with the Nigerian market. The other thing we track here is our market, which are just the states within these regions. How do I know that they are states? If we drop down on this, we would see here that the options we have here are typically this country. So which means that within the region, we want to track which states did this transaction happen in. Then further down, within this market, which store this trade did this particular transaction. The date on which we add this particular transaction, that is the trade date that we see here. Then we have the fiscal period. So fiscal period is just more like the financial period of the organization. So most structured organizations have the normal calendar date, which is the typical trade dates that we see here. Then they now have the fiscal period. So fiscal period essentially most times is tied to when the company was founded, or money, or some other things around that. Somebody said I'm breaking. Please let's confirm. Is that so with everybody? Is that so with everybody, or is just the person? Is my voice consistent? Can everybody hear me? Yes, I'm breaking. Yes, my voice is breaking. Is consistent somewhere. I'm breaking. I'm not breaking. Which do I pick now? Let me. Please, admin, if anyone has information, if probably we are here, just so I'm sure that it's not some other person's internet. Okay, it's fine now. Okay, good. So all right, so let's work with this for now, and then we'll see as soon as there is probably there's an issue. Just let me know, please. All right, and it might just be a lag from your end. All right, so this is what I was explaining. So we could have companies would have fiscal period, which is more like the financial year. So a company might have their financial year start on a month that is other than January. Organization has a model. It has a line of business. Each model belongs to a line of business. Then we now have the day category. So the day category end of day. On what kind of day? Transaction happen on a work day, or on a local holiday, or on observance, public holiday, or on whatever. So we need to we have this being tracked in the business, and then we have the actual revenue that came in for that particular transaction, and the actual unit sold for messages now that is breaking. I don't know if you just got this information, you just got to your end. Maybe you just got to your end, maybe. Okay, all right. So truthfully, it might just be the reception really. Thanks a lot for that, Peace and my bosses. Okay, so this is the summary of the data set. But what we want to start with is this. We want to categorize our units sold into whether the units sold would fall into the low category, medium category, or the high category. So this is more like categorizing our transactions. And then we are saying that whenever we sell between 1 and 20 units, whenever we sell between 1 and 20 units, we want to categorize that to be a low transaction. Whenever we sell between 21 and 50 units, we want to categorize that to be a medium transaction. And whenever our units sold is more than 50 units in any particular transaction, such as this, we want to categorize that to be a high transaction. All right. So that is what we want to do. Do we understand what we want to achieve first before we go to now do what we want to do or how we want to achieve it? Do we understand what we want to achieve first? All right, makes sense. So let's begin. Because now we have said that we need to look at the units sold from each of these transactions. We need to look at the units sold from each of these transactions and see test for some conditions, and you want to return certain things, then you will be using conditional functions. Conditional functions in Excel. So we have the if, we have the switch, then we have some helper guys like and, or, we have XOR, and the likes of those. Let's see if we can get their group sort of, you see the summary here. All of this function that I'm talking about, you find them under the logical functions. If we click on the drop down for logical, you see that we have quite a few of them here. This is the if that I mentioned. Means we have the if error as well, which comes in very handy when you want to manage your calculation returning some errors. We have the ifs. You have the if any. So yesterday that we went into a scenario with our VLOOKUP, and at the point we got some NAs, you can use the if NA to say that if it be a blank or something. Have the XOR, excuse me, and like that. So you find a list of all the logical functions here. But the one we're going to be using here is we use the if function. Why do we want to use the if function? Number one, because it is what you'll be using the most, depending on the scenario you find yourself in. And at some point as well, you might want to use the ifs, which can handle more scenarios. And you might want to use the switch function as well, which would handle more scenarios as well. All right, so let's start with the if. Let's just do something very simple for us with the if function. So I'll come here. I would call this transaction category has three arguments. There are three arguments that if as we have the logical statement, which is the logical test, which is a way of saying that you want to test a condition. And when you test that condition and the condition returns a true or the condition comes out true, then you want to return what value? That is the value if true. If you test this condition and it returns or comes out false, the value is false. So you have a condition to test, the logical test, then you have value if true, which is true, false. Is this still making sense to us? All right, so let's do this then. Okay, fine. So it's buckets. But let's do this first. So that we are not confused. I would reduce this bucket into this first. So let me just get out of this for now. So I will say that for two categories, we want to have this same table here. Once we get this first one, then we'll get the other ones clearly. These are our conditions. We have two conditions for now, which is within the range of 1 to 20. If it is, target low. If the unit sold is within the range of 21 to 50. So let's do this first, and then you see how this comes out. So I'll come here to say equal to if. I'll say equal to if. Then the logical test will be that check if the unit sold here, which this one is 32, is less than this one. Want to check if it is less than 20, because that is what will put it in this first 20. But let me do less than 20 first. Want to check if it is less than 20. If it is, we want to target low, which means it is a low transaction. If it is not, then here, yeah, we'll come to the less than or equal to. So let's just watch this first. So what did I do here? Check whatever is on this cell for our unit sold. Check if this is less than. If not, then target to be a medium transaction. So I'll close my brackets here and I'll hit enter, and we get back medium here. Why did we get back medium? Because the condition that we tested for, the condition is false. So, and the way to, this is also the way to audit your formula. You see that when I highlighted it this way, it already told me, you see a false came up at the top, which means that for this cell, this condition tested false, and that's why it skipped the false. This is not still the real mathematics yet, Ademola. We are just coming. So I do equal to if check this value here, 20. We say that low targets low, or we target medium, which is the otherwise. So maybe to make it even more clearer, let's use our function argument box. Equal to if control A to bring up our function argument box. This guy less than 20. That's a logical test. You already see that this gave us a false, which means this is admin, please, maybe we can take down the video thumbnail. Thank you. So we already see the result here, which is what we have on this cell. 32 is less than 20 apparently. That's why we have a false here. We want to return low, which I'll put in double quote because this is text, and then opposite, which that is what will give us the false value. Then we want to tag this medium like this. And you see that it tells us that for this one, it would be medium and not less than 20. Which means 32 is not less than 20. If 32 was less than 20, what we'll see as the result will be low. But because 32 is not less than 20, we see the alternate result. So I'll click on OK. That enters that into the cell. How is it now for everybody? Okay. Let me see if I can switch this internet. So if it's telling you there's a problem with the formula, you need to use double quote. When you enter text like this, you use double quote, not single quote twice. It has to be double quote. All right. So 1 second, let me switch this. Okay, so how is it now? Am I more audible, clearer now? Okay, all right. So let's shoot on. So if I bring this down, a step down like this, you see that it tags this immediately low because our condition says that if I come a step downwards again, this is low. But when I get to this guy again, we have medium for this guy. All right. So the condition that we defined, whenever it looked at the cell that has the unit sold, it tests it against the condition, which is to say 20, it tags it low. If the value is greater than 20, it tags it medium. For the last time, for those people that didn't get this earlier, look at this, and this will be the last time I would work on this. Excuse me. So I'll clean this out. This is what we are doing. Equal to if equal to if check the unit sold if it is less than 20. Check the unit sold if it is, we want to return low. If it is not, we want to return medium. What is mean? We should target to be.
Have you ever wondered how businesses make those big game-changing decisions? It is all about the data. Welcome to the exciting world of data analysis.
Should target to be. Okay. So once you define this now, which is a case of you have your condition here, then what should happen if the condition is true, and what should happen if the condition is not true? We have this sold to be less than 20, it returned low for them, and wherever we have the results to be the unit sold to be more than 20, it returned medium. Does this make sense to us now? People that were not clear earlier, is it clear to you now? How did the box come out? How did you get the function argument box? This is your first class, obviously. Okay, clear. All right. So this is when we have two categories like this. When you have two categories like this works perfectly. But in a case like this that we need to what you need to do is to now, you have a number of options anyways, but if you work with a version of Excel that has ifs, if you work with a version of Excel that has ifs, then you can do this even more easily. But if you don't, which means you want to use function, then you will need to combine if into if. Alternatively, you can so let's work with the switch function to see how we can incorporate I into this. So what we'll do is this. I'll come here, I'll do equal to, I'm not so sure if it's been available since 2016. Not so sure if it's been available since 2016, but just confirm on your own system, do equal to switch. If it came out for you, type yes on the chart for me. If it did not, no on the chart. Just do equal to switch and let me know if it came out for you or not. Okay, 2016, no. Okay, I'm beginning to see bunches of no's. Okay, looks like more people that have responded do not have it. That's what I can visually pick. Okay, then so let's use the if. Then we'll need to nest our ifs. So this is what we'll do. So look up everybody, look up everybody. This is how to approach it. We do equal to if like this. So we do equal to if like this. Then I would pay attention to this, please, so that you are not confused. Pay attention to this. We could have written this directly on the just in the so that you use this to understand how to work with functions within functions using the function argument box. So because the interesting thing about the function argument box is that it makes it function into another function that is called nesting. So the first thing we do is less than or equal to 20 because we want 20 to be inclusive. So if it is even 20, you should still target low. That is what we said by 1 to 20. Then if this is true, target low. That is the first condition. We are done with that. Then the second condition, we now need to program the second condition by to be true, then return low. Otherwise, I need you to test another condition. Just pay attention into this, please. Let's pay attention. So when you type in your if here, you open and close your brackets like this. You open and close your brackets like this. Then you come to your formula bar. You come to your formula bar. You see that this is what you have. J2 less than or equal to 20. If this is true, return low. Then you have another if here. Then this other if that you have here, keep your eye on this. I want you to notice what will happen. Keep your eye on the function argument box. If I click on this second if, which is the if that I have inside this if I click on the second one, you see that the function argument actually changed. It changed to something else. Just so that you are clear, what I will do for now is this. I will go back to this, and then I will come in here. I will put a different function here, a function like VLOOKUP that you know. And then I'll open and close the bracket. And now, if you look at the formula bar now, I'm on if, so the function argument box is showing the argument that I need to supply for if. If I want to now build out the argument for VLOOKUP, I just need to come into my formula bar here and click VLOOKUP. And you see that immediately my function argument box switched to VLOOKUP, and it needs me to now fill this out. So this is how the function argument box works when you are nesting a function inside another function. All right, so let's get back to this now. So I would come back to this if, and then here it's not meant to be VLOOKUP. I'll type in if here. I'll type in if here. And this if now, so I'll come in here to test for the second condition. What is our second condition? It has to be whatever is here has to be less than or equal to 50. It has to be less than or equal to 50. If this is true, then this will be a medium transaction. Network is really bad. Looks like it's everywhere. But I hope that some people are still able to follow, depending on how strong the reception is at your end. Okay, so if this other condition is true, target medium, otherwise target high. Okay. So I have medium here. If I come a step downwards, I have low. Yes, I'll do it again, don't worry. Then if I come downwards, I have low. Up to this, I have medium. This, we have high. So this is now we've been, but let's go over it again. So I'll go over this again. Equal to if, equal to if, Control A to bring up the function argument box. Then check if the 20. If it is, target low. It's not. We want to check for another condition. So I'll put another if here. And I need to now configure the argument for this if. So I'll go to my formula bar and just click this second if. Once I click the second if, you see that I now get a blank if function argument box. Now I need to define the second condition, which is to check this guy again, if it is less than or equal to 50. If it is, it means that that will be a medium transaction. If it is not, which means both conditions, I can go on to click on OK now, and then we can pull this down. Has anybody tried this out? Do we have any results yet? Someone is complaining of not hearing in class, but you're asking for attendance. You want to mark attendance too. Okay, some of us got it. All right, good. Okay, it worked. Okay, excellent. Okay, I think we should take our break now. So let's take our break now, but it will be for 5 minutes. And hopefully we have a better reception. But this is our country. We'll manage and run with it. Hopefully it doesn't disrupt the class completely. So let's from here. I'll leave this up so that in case you still want to look at the actual formula, you can use this, and then maybe the admin can also assist with the attendance, the link to the attendance form. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for your patience. All right.
Insights.
Okay, we're back. We're back. I see a lot of us have been able to get it. You got the hang of it now. Any other person, teachers, they try. Mercy. You need to send me chewing gum. Yeah, we they try. We say no. All right, so let's. Yeah, Mercy, you said sir. Yes, that's what I said. Okay, so let's get back to this. So now what I need to do here, pull this down. It fills it down completely. Anywhere you see I, what that means is that that particular value is greater than 50. So you have your data set already ready. Then you now want to go on to start creating your report. How do you start creating your report? The first thing is there are a number of ways you can create report in Excel. You can use the functions that you've learned to create reports in Excel. Remember our very first class where we spoke about functions in Excel, where we spoke about the sum, the max, the mean, all of those aggregations. That is a typical report as well. But for this particular class, we want to look at a separate tool that we can use to create reports in Excel. This tool is what is called pivot tables. So pivot table is a data summarization tool. It's a tool that you use to summarize your data so that, because one typical thing that you need to bear in mind is if we look at this data set, we have 30,800 records on this data set. You don't want to go into a presentation and then you are for each of this transaction. Nobody wants to listen to such. So what people want to listen to is what is the summary from this data set that you have. And a tool that will get you to that summary quickest is pivot table. If you want to work with pivot table, listen to this, everybody. What you need to do essentially is to have your data set structured in this manner. 30,800, yes. If you do control down arrow, it takes you to the last row on that cell, on that file, and you see that you have 30,800. That is pretty small. You can have to work with it. You may have to work with a data set that is as large as a million rows or even tens of millions or hundreds of millions of records. So you need to find a way to summarize what is happening within that data set. So what we'll do now is this. This is an introduction to pivot table class. Then the next class, we're going to be looking at some more interesting things that you can do with pivot table. So what we'll do first is our data set is structured this way. You just need to click anywhere within your data set. Just click anywhere within it. All right. Somebody said, what's wrong? You click anywhere within your data set, to the insert tab. You come here to the insert tab. On the insert tab, at the leftmost part of it, you see pivot table. You see pivot table. If you click on this drop down, this just tells you where you can create a pivot table from. You can either create a pivot table from a table or range or from a data model. So what we are using is from table or range. Why? Because this is our data set here. So this data set, here, again, click anywhere within your data set, go to insert, come here to pivot table, and select from table or range. I'll select from table or range. Once you do that, you get a dialog box. You get a dialog box like this. If you do have this dialog box, please give me yes on the chat. If you have the dialog box, type yes on the chat for me. Excellent. On this dialog box now, there are a couple of information that are important. Number one is table or range. It's on Excel, you have it already highlighted. This tells you that your data is on this data that you want to work with is on the data worksheet. If we come here to look at our worksheet, you see that we named this data. So that is the first thing you see on this dialog box. And then you have A1 to K30,800. That is where our data is sitting on this worksheet. The dollar sign that you see here, you already do understand what they mean. Then down, just below it, you have to make a choice whether you want on an existing worksheet. Typically, you want this to be on a new worksheet because good practice is that you separate your data from your report. Your data should be on a worksheet, your report should be on another worksheet, or your data should be on a workbook and your report can be on a separate workbook. So you have it to be the default, you just leave it as it is, new worksheet, and then you come here to click on OK. Once you click on OK, you get a new worksheet open up for you with a pivot table placeholder like this. If you do have this placeholder, please tell me I do on the chart. If you have this pivot table placeholder, tell me I do on the chart. All right. Let's understand how to work with pivot tables quickly. Look at this now. We have this pivot table placeholder here. What? But before this, you come here to the right. On the right side of your screen, you see that you have a pivot table fields here, and then you have 4 buckets. So maybe this is how you have yours. You have this pivot table fields at the top, and at the bottom, you have these 4 boxes. If you can see this, please say yes on the chart. You can see pivot table boxes at the bottom. Please say yes on the chart. All right, good. So now, somebody should tell me the pivot table fields that you see some things under it, region, market, store, and the likes. Where do you think these are coming from? The names that you see under the pivot table fields, where do you think they are coming from? From your data set, I know. From the table, I know. Where? What part of it? I've not seen what I'm looking for. Yes, I know it's from the data. Header names. Thank you, Umi. So it's coming from the header names, the headings. So the headings on this file, that is what the pivot table picked and placed on the pivot table fields for you. Which means that in order to build all the reports you want to build from pivot tables, what you need to do is just to pick from these headers, and pivot table will do the rest for you. But before then, we need to understand these 4 buckets. What we need to understand about the 4 buckets is that because these headers, what you'll be doing with them is putting them in each of these 4 buckets. How do you now know what to put in each of these 4 buckets? What would influence that is what you want to achieve. But take this from me first. Whenever you have any column that you can aggregate the data within that column. By aggregating the data, you're looking at that column and you think that the values or the items in this column can be summed up. You can find the average of the values in that column, then that column is a candidate for the values bucket. I'll say that again. You look at the column here. We have said that these are the column headers from your data set. The column that would go into the values bucket should be a column that makes sense to sum them up, for example. Then that column can go into your values bucket. So I want you now to give me example of such columns from what you have here. Which columns from here can be the candidates for the value? Which candidates for the values bucket? All right. Eleonora, revenue, excellent. Revenue, I see revenue. I see units sold. Revenue, good. Revenue, units sold. Is there any other one? Anybody? Revenue, units sold, good. Any other one? Somebody said model. Is that correct? Somebody says store. Is that correct? That would not be correct. So what you will need to do to find out is go to your actual data set. If you go to your actual data set, you said store. Can you pick the items in this column and sum it up? Can you use plus Abaji? No. Somebody said model. 3002p plus 2000. Then we have these other columns here. We have revenue. You obviously can add this up. Units sold. You can add it up and it makes sense. I have a quick question for you. Numbers of our customers. Can that column go into the values bucket? Can that column go into? Okay, no. Somebody said yes. So what I'm asking is, you have a column that holds phone numbers. Can you sum up or can you drop that particular column in the values bucket? Can you drop that column into the values bucket? No. All right. The reason why is even when the phone number looks like numbers, it wouldn't make sense to pick Joyce's phone number and add it to Queen's phone number. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add any reporting value. So you don't want to do that. So that is how you figure out what column should go into the values bucket and what column cannot go into the values bucket. If this is clear, then we are left to look at the other buckets that we have on the pivot table. So think about it for now. The rows and the columns that we have here, we have sorted out the values bucket. For the rows and the columns, what would define what would go into if you would drop the item into the rows or the columns, or let me take it this way, we have identified what can go into the values bucket. Any other column aside from the columns that can go into the values bucket can go into the rows, the columns, or the filters. I'll take that again. From this now, we already said that the units sold and revenue can go into the values bucket. What it means is that all the rest, the remaining columns that we have here, they can all go into either the rows or the columns or the filters. What will now determine where you would place what is first, for the orientation of your report, is how you want your report to be. Look at this for the moment. I have my pivot table placeholder here. So this will be clear now. I have the pivot table placeholder here. If I want the items on my report to be listed top to bottom like this, listen everybody. If I want the items on my report to be listed top to bottom, then I will drop that category into the rows. If I pick this region now, I've dropped it into the rows bucket. You see that the items in the rows bucket, you see now that they are listed left to right. If I pick this same region and I drop it in the columns bucket, you see now that the orientation of my report changed and now the items are listed left to right. I'll take that again. What I've said earlier is this. We first needed to sort out the values bucket. And we said that what will go into the values bucket is the column or the columns that can be aggregated. Once you have figured out the columns that can be aggregated and would make sense, then any other column that you have left, they can either go into the rows, the columns, or the filters. We'll leave out the filters for now. For the rows and the columns, what would define where you should place what is the orientation of your report. If you want your report to be top to bottom like this, you want the items to be listed top to bottom, then you need to place it in the rows bucket. If you want the items to be listed left to right, then you need to place that same column in the columns bucket, and you see now that they are listed left to right. Do we understand what I've just explained? Okay, it's clear. All right. Those that you are not clear with, you need to please take your time to go over the recording. This definitely will be clear to you. All right, good. So let's proceed. So for now, let's create our first report. The first report, the report we want to create now is we want to see our total revenue and break it down by, we want to break down our total revenue by the region. So we want to see how much did we make in each of the regions. That's the first report we are going to create. How do you go about that? Just come here to your pivot table fields, check the box for revenue, and check the box for region, and tell me what buckets did they go to for you. Check the box for revenue, check the box for region, and tell me what box did they go to. The pivot table is showing invalid. You did something wrong. You need to check back at it. Where did they go to? Revenue went to values for Motonayo. Thank you. Okay. For Christiana, good. Rows and values. Excellent. So your revenue went automatically to values because Excel is able to identify that the items you have in the revenue column, they can be aggregated. So it throws them into the values bucket. And Excel identify that what you have in the region column cannot be aggregated, so it throws it automatically into the rows bucket for you. Let's now look at the report that was created. So this is our first report here. It tells us that the total amount we made in this business for the time that we are analyzing was 7 million. And then this is the breakdown of how much we made in each of the regions. How much we made in each of the regions. So in this North Central region, we made this. In the Northeast, we made this. In the Northwest, we made this, and like that. This is a report, an excellent report to begin with. But let's do something extra. All right? These numbers are not readable. So you struggle to read whether these are in millions or in billions or whatever. How do you go about that? Just highlight the numbers, everybody. Highlight the numbers and press Ctrl Shift 1. Highlight the numbers and press Ctrl Shift 1. When you press Ctrl Shift 1, it separates this. It formats it comma separated or thousand with the thousand separator. And now we can clearly see that in the Northeast, we made 18 billion, while in the Northwest, 9 billion, and like that. Are we all on the same page? All on the same page, everybody? All right. In case you feel that you do not need this decimal points, you can highlight the numbers again and come here to under your home tab, you see the numbers group, and you can take out this. So just click this twice and all the decimal points will be off. Makes sense up to this point? All right. All right, good. So looks like we are on the same page. Excellent. From here now, one thing you would have realized is that the numbers here, when you checked the box for revenue, it went into the values bucket and it was summed up. So you see, that's why you see that this column is tagged sum each of these regions. So what you have been able to do with this magical tool is you have been able to summarize 30,800 rows into just 6 rows based on the regions that we transact within. And now we have a summary report in case the management or whoever is interested wants to know how much we made in each of the regions. We can pull this out to them and say that in this region, North Central, this is the amount we made, and the total amount is 73 billion, but this is what we made in each of these regions. The default calculation that happens whenever you put a column in the values bucket is to sum up the numbers. But you can alter this calculation. You can do some other levels of calculations. These are things that we'll be looking at in the next class. And we'll see how you can now translate this into a proper report such that you now have some charts, some tables, you can filter, and then you can do some other dynamic things with your report. But I think this suffices for today, owing to the fact that a couple of people as well were not able to follow because of internet disruption. But I do hope that some of us were able to get something from the class today, and those that were not able to, hopefully, we can catch up with the recording before our class on Tuesday, wherein we'll be wrapping up this. So I want to seek our indulgence. Do not or do ensure that, so erase the do not, it's meant to be do. Do ensure that you go over the recording over the weekend and see to practicing this out. This is a first pivot table. We'll be building a lot of this, maybe about 8 or 10 or more in the next class. And then we'll see how we can turn all of this into a proper report in our next class by God's grace on Tuesday. So let's ensure that you take out time to practice this. Please, all of the learning so far, make our time to revisit them. Don't pile up your learnings, don't pile up your classes. When we started, I think when Femi was taking us, I saw somebody write on the group, on the chat, that the person had 3 classes to watch replays for. That is a lot, and that is too much of work in my opinion. You need to ensure that you are not piling up these classes. You need to ensure that you are not skipping classes. You need to ensure that when you are in class, you are focused on your learning. Try to eschew distractions as much as possible. You are not in class to mark attendance. I always say this. Yes, attendance tells we, the organizers, that you were in class, but your learning will go further with you than the attendance that you mark in class. I'm not saying that you shouldn't mark attendance, but if beyond the time that has been allotted for the attendance, you were not able to you were not able to fill out the attendance form at that point in time, then you can always do that after, when we are wrapping up the session. It's a link, so you have the link. Maybe you should already even have the link. I don't know if it changes, but it's a link that's been customized. You can have it saved somewhere, so that's, you just refer to it. You don't even need it to be displayed on the screen. You refer back to it whenever it's time for you to mark attendance and the form is open for such. So again, priority should be placed on your learnings and what you get from the class. Aroma, my pivot table keeps showing data source reference is not valid. You did not do what I asked you to do, so you need to go back to check that as well. You wish that you had looked at, you were taught this yesterday before your interview today. Oh, sorry about that, Ejiro. Sorry, we didn't know you had an interview today. We probably would have given you some hints, but hopefully you still get the best from the interview. I wish you the very best. All right, so this year we'll be drawing the curtain for today. We catch up next time. I'm not sure, there are some questions. I can't see any from the admin side. Maybe there was not. Yes, there is background sound somewhere. Yes, there is something going on around here. That's why. So sorry about that. Okay. Let me see. I'm unable to get the pivot table. Mine is showing data source reference is not valid. You need to just revise how we connected the pivot table. You shouldn't be getting that error. We cannot change this part of the pivot table. You try to edit a part of the pivot table. You cannot. You shouldn't be editing. You won't be able to. So don't try to do that. Especially for the areas that you have your numbers in. The only thing you can edit on the pivot table is the headers. So anything else on the pivot table, you shouldn't edit it. Lots and lots of messages. How did you get the drop down list, please? What drop down list? So if you're referring to these ones here, you need to first add it. So which are just the filter buttons. So you can stay where you have the headers. So if you stay where you have the headers, you do Control Shift L. That would toggle them on or off. So you see now Control Shift L, it brought up the drop down list. If I do Control Shift L again, it takes out the drop down list, the drop down option for the filters. So that's how that was gotten. And don't use same venue on Tuesday because your network is really bad. All right, ma. Where are the working files dropped on Telegram? Trying to see if there's any other. The rest aren't showing. Yes, you need to. That's for Busayo. You need to pull down the formula. That should have been clear since the previous classes we had. Let me see. You want to see how the switch function works? All right, so let's do that and then we'll wrap up. All right, so if I come here, but I'll do it once. So if you don't get it, you catch up with the recording. So I'll come here, I do equal to switch like this, and then I can say I can pull up the function argument box. So I pull up the function argument box like this. Then the expression, which is what is the result you want to test each of these for? The result we want to test each of these for is we want to test them all to be true. That is what we want to test each of them for. So what is now each of the value you see here? So for the switch, you will have a value and result pair. Value, result, value, result, value, result, until probably you have a default result that will happen. So you have the value you see. Wherever you see value, what that means is the actual condition you want to test. Think about it like what you have in the logical statement, what you have in the logical statement for your if function. So that is what you will have in your value here for switch. And then the result is what you normally would have in your value if true for your if function is what you would have as your result. So because we are testing for everything to be true. So now, what is the value here? So I'll select this. So I want to test whatever is in this cell. Want to test it to be either less than or equal to 20. That's what we want to test. If this is true, we are tagging this low. We are tagging this low, just like we did for the if function. Then we come here. The second value we want to test is we have a second condition to test here, which is now if it is not less than or equal to 20, we come here to the same cell, pick this, and say that this is less than or equal to 50. All right. And if this is true, we want this to be medium. That is the second result. Then if I scroll down on this, we can now have the default there because we do not have any other condition to test. We have tested just two conditions, so we have three categories. The first is for low, the second is for medium. If none of this is true, then it should tag it I. So I'll put I here, and it tags it I. So what this is doing is that The switch function allows you, it's just a more visually intuitive way of breaking down conditions. So for each, you will have a condition and you have the result. You have a condition, you have the results. You have a condition and you have the result. And for the last one, you don't need to test any condition for it because that's just the default value if all of the other options are not true. So we have this already, but remember that your expression is true, which is what you want the results to all be when you test this condition. All these conditions have to be true. That's a way to explain it. Then without specify was the first condition, which is the value 1. What is the result? If value 1 is true, then if value 2 is true, what is the result? It's medium. Then because we don't have a third condition, we leave the default to be I, and I can click on OK here. What I do, you see that here we also have medium for this. I will just come down a few rows and you'll see that we have the same result. So this is the switch function here, which is on the formula bar, and before it is the if function or the nested ifs. Make sense? All right, we'll see on Tuesday by God's grace. Thank you, everybody, and bye for now.
Have you ever wondered and uncovered hidden